have realized that being a junior at Gunn High School means that you carry a certain reputation. Maybe it's just the fact that Gunn High School is located in the heart of the Silicon Valley. Or maybe it's the fact that Gunn is literally 10 minutes away from Stanford. No matter what the case may be, one thing is for certain. Gunn High School students are stressed and burnt out. They have to juggle 10 things at a time, all the while just trying to be a normal teenager. In order to illustrate this problem a little better, here's Juno Kim. He teeters back and forth across his day, much like how a tightrope walker would teeter across a rope.
So I've been thinking about what I want to do after high school, and I think I really want to be a teacher.
I don't think you should do that. You know, teachers don't make as much money as they deserve. You know what? You should become a doctor instead. Make your parents proud.
But I don't want to be a doctor. I want to teach people things.
You should at least get into Stanford first, and then decide. Anyways, I heard all of the students who got into Stanford last year took at least 13 APs in high school. Why can't you be more like them?
I'm not even interested in most of those APs. Why would I take them?
You know what? Just take them, all right? Just trust me. They'll make your life easier in the future. Oh, and by the way, get rid of that TA job. It does nothing for you. Take another AP instead. You'll thank me later.
You wouldn't get it. Teaching is my passion.
Why can't you be passionate about something like biology? I hear that neuroscience is a growing field. You should become a neurosurgeon. They make at least 6 figures.
I am interested in biology. I was just wondering how I could take both biology and teaching even after high school, because I'm interested in lots of different things. I just don't know how to.
Imagine a tightrope walker, high above the ground. They carefully walk step by step from one skyscraper to the next. Everything leading up to this moment has required rigorous training in discipline, focus, and balance. And it seems that we as Silicon Valley teenagers must tread a similarly precarious path when it comes to navigating our own interests and passions through the expectations of society.
How did I even end up on this line we found ourselves at? The answer is all around us. We're constantly surrounded by successful Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, some of which are even our parents or close family friends. They're completely immersed in their fields. And so in order to keep up, the mindset that we have to be at 100% all the time has been drilled into us.
They tell us that in order to achieve their level of success, you must keep our heads down and follow this line until we one day reach our ideal life. They tell us that we cannot get distracted by unproductive hobbies, or else we will quickly lose balance and fall off this one tightrope to success. They tell us that by the end, we will find that it was all worth it.
But we weren't so sure. Middle school and high school are the formative years for discovery. 8th grade was when I discovered that I really had a passion for tutoring others.
That's when I discovered my love for art.
And that's when I discovered I loved playing songs on the guitar.
And for so many, it is a time that we use to both explore and also begin nurturing the roots that set the foundation for later in life.
Put it this way. Person A is a music producer who loves and fell in love with music production after listening to Frank Ocean's Channel Orange. Now, he invests his hard-earned money into buying himself a music mixing software so he can bring himself one step closer to becoming his dream of being a music producer.
Meanwhile, person B is just like the tightrope walker. She had a lot of fun in her 8th grade robotics team, but society tells her that she wouldn't be good at it. And so, she begins focusing on practicing the violin instead, and steps on a tightrope that others have laid out for her.
Well, I'd like to say that I've met more person A's than person B's. The unfortunate truth is, for every person A forging their own path and pursuing their interests, there are at least 5 person B's that are setting out on the path that has been laid out for them by others. And this is why telling teens to follow a singular path to success is so toxic. It causes us to lose our natural curiosity and pursue a life based on the fear of failure. So instead of doing what we actually want to do, it causes us to stick to the security that we find and living out someone else's life.
While in theory, we like to think that we're all confident enough to just say what's really on our minds when people ask about what we want to do in the future. In reality, it's not always the case, as once we're actually put face to face with another person, we find that we just say what feels best to us in the moment, even though it may not be the truth.
For me, I had always dreaded the college talk. And it wasn't because I hated the idea of college, but rather that I had no idea what to say in these conversations. These awkward situations usually arose at family gatherings, where I'd start talking to a family friend, and they would tell me about their trip to Lake Tahoe last summer, and I would in turn dodge questions about my grades, but I could never escape that dreaded question.
So that's enough about my new startup. What do you plan on doing in the future?
I'm not too sure yet. Nothing's really caught my eye so far.
Nothing? Well, it has to be something. How about any of the classes that you're taking at school? Or maybe something STEM related?
I actually like a lot of my STEM classes at school, but I'm not really sure which one I want to narrow down and focus on yet. I think I want more time to explore.
Well, sometimes you just need a nudge in the right direction. Have you tried talking to people from different industries?
Not yet, but that sounds like a really good idea. I'm just not sure where I get into contact with people like that. The truth of the matter is that I've always been passionate about STEM. I've been coding for many years now, and I really love my math and physics classes I take at Gunn High School. But for as many STEM interests I have, I also have a lot of interest in non-STEM related things, like baking. And so, I began to think, was there a way to combine both worlds, both the STEM and the baking world, to the benefit of both? In other words, wasn't there a way to do both? And to answer that, I checked online, and no one's really explored that field yet.
But the very fact that no one has explored that field just opens up another opportunity for us to forge our own path. The road not taken yet still remains, and it is up to every one of us to decide if we're the ones who want to follow in someone else's footsteps, or if we're the ones who want to forge a new path for others to follow.
So, what is the issue? The problem is, as we've discovered, that the younger generation is pressured to focus all of their time and attention into one interest. But pursuing what you love shouldn't be limited to just one thing. Encouraging the younger generation means allowing them generation means allowing.
And how do we explore? Well, we find that often the best way to explore is by helping other people find out how to explore themselves first. And we plan to do this through holding seminars to increase exposure to our audience to certain topics such as art and AI, and various resources and potential pathways that they can explore in the future to better understand what they want to do.
And so, SVTTT, or Silicon Valley Teen Tech Talk, was born.
We established SVTTT, or Silicon Valley Teen Tech Talk, in order to help inspire students to find their passion. With our organization, we brought keynote speakers in to show what working in the field of coding was all about. We seem to solve our problem by
1. Giving people a chance to explore their fields of interest and see what real-life applications they help. In addition, they'd be able to see the ways in which coding could be used in non-traditional fields.
And 2, it allowed for a first glance into what the field has to offer. So even if they decide later that the field is not for them, the cost for the opportunity was low, and they learn a lot along the process.
So we're done, right?
I mean, yeah, basically, right? We solved the 2 main problems.
Cool, so we're finished.
Or so we thought. Nothing's ever really that easy, is it? Though we saw that our events got plenty of attendance, with many people lining the rows, we saw that as they were leaving, they seemed relatively indifferent about what we just talked about. Many of them almost seemed there just because their parents forced them to be there.
What's more is that in our feedback forms, we found that a lot of members were actually lacking engagement with our talks. This was because many audience members were actually leaving the auditorium more confused than they had been when they had first entered. This had only decreased accessibility to our topics. There was a problem, and so we had to go back to our drawing board and brainstorm and analyze and discuss.
That talk was so great. We got so much participation, and our keynote speakers were on point.
Nah, man, look at the crowd. Sure, the parents are focusing, but look at the kids. That one over there is playing Clash Royale on his phone right now. And that one over there, well, he's just asleep.
What do we do?
After what seemed like eons of brainstorming, talking, and going through 11 stacks of paper, we finally realized the solution that we wanted to focus on.
We realized that the average listener in our audience was a local middle or high school who had little to no knowledge about the topic. But our approach had thrown them down a pit of the most advanced topics we could find without even considering their background. So this only raised the barrier of entry to their fields of interest because there is no obvious or actionable way for them to start their journey.
What's worse is that in our forms, we realized that teenagers were leaving with a superficial understanding of these topics. They had no way to delve deeper and truly understand what it was that we were talking about. In essence, we had only complicated the problems we had initially set out to fix. They had no idea what they should pursue afterwards because they were confused. So we had to come up with a new solution that operated in 3 main parts.
First, we aim to diversify our talk topics to a wider variety of fields in the technology field. This way, we could increase our audience's ability to understand that passions do not have to be separate. You don't need to compromise one of your passions to pursue another. And sometimes the best way to feel the most fulfilled is by pursuing the intersection of multiple passions. For example, we held talks about art generation with AI as well as game design.
Second, we not only centered presentations around industry professionals, but we also created a platform and presentation time for local middle and high schoolers to present their projects that they were working on in the field. This served both as a different perspective of the topic and also as a way to show the audience how they themselves could get involved.
Third, we realized that students didn't know where to go after these talks. And so we worked on creating our online homepage, which included information like recorded versions of our talks, a synopsis of the talk's content, and contact information for the keynote speakers.
Even with all these improvements, we still have a long way to go. It's not a perfect solution, and it really never will be, because there's no such thing as a perfect solution.
But we think that's the beauty in it. Since there never is any perfect solution, that means that there's constantly room for us to grow and adapt to an ever-changing world and audience.
One improvement that we're currently working on is bringing our organization to a global stage. We've actually had people from all over the world come to our talks recently, from places like Kenya to Korea and to Greece.
Because we've had people simultaneously come from all over the world to see our talks, we couldn't be happier that our message is now reaching all different kinds of people.
And our message is not just limited to the tech field. We realize that closed-minded people exist in every field, and we hope to open their minds via our seminars and talks.
And that's where you come in. Don't be the closed-minded person who shuts down ideas just because they're new. Be the open-minded person who elevates new ideas and starts conversations that shape the next generation. For example, here's Justin, a Gunn High Schooler whose friends elevate his passion for music.
Wow, I surely do love playing the guitar. And I also love computer science. I wonder if there's any way that I could combine both of these interests.
That sounds like a really good idea. You should ask Juno. I've heard he's done stuff with this before.
Okay. Hey, Juno, do you have any ideas on how I can get started?
Well, I know that Spotify has a bunch of data about the music that they release, So maybe you could combine that with your guitar playing and create something new.
That's a great idea. Let me think. What if I made an app that recommended new music for me to learn on the guitar based on my skill level and past music that I've already learned?
That sounds really cool. We should get started on it.
Silicon Valley teenagers aspire to be successful tightrope walkers, following a life that's been laid out for them from the moment that they enter high school to the moment they retire.
But we realize that that can be often comforting, as there's only one line for you to follow, and you always know what's behind you and ahead of you.
But these tightrope walkers are missing an essential link. Once they reach that other side of the line, they reflect on all of the missed passion projects and abandoned opportunities they had lost along the way. In a moment of clarity, they realize that life is not about following that established line well, but rather about forging your own path.
They also realize that the role models that they based their whole lives on following that tightrope were not, in fact, tightrope walkers. They were trailblazers. This means that they were eccentrically passionate and shamelessly authentic and pursued whatever they wanted, no matter what other people thought. Now, this is the exact opposite of tightrope walking.
At SVTTT, we stress the importance of being a trailblazer. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Understand all of the resources that you have at your disposal and generally through the internet. Stop walking that tightrope, look around you, and become the person that inspires the next generation.
Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.